Hi, I'm Christie Jenkins. My father, Dr. M.T. Jenkins, known to all as Pepper, led the resuscitation efforts as the Chief of Anesthesiology at Parkland and Southwestern Medical School.
I was in the dining room sitting with some other members of my department and a few surgical residents. Suddenly the loudspeakers came alive with the call, Dr. Shire's stat. Dr. Ron Jones got up and went to the phone and answered for him to tell the operator he was out of town. He came immediately back to the table and said, "The president's been shot and they're bringing him here." I ran across the dining room, down the back stairs, to the one-stair flight, to the emergency room entrance. As I came into the room, Carrico was just taking a laryngoscope out of the patient's mouth. That's the lighted instrument used to put a tube through the mouth into the trachea so it can be connected up to a ventilator or to a breathing bag so you can respire for the patient. He was cyanotic, that is, his face was blue, suffused. His pupils were widely dilated, his conjunctiva were bloodshot. He had a gasping type respiration. Gasping type is an agonal type respiration, a mylohyoid group of muscles, these right under the chin. Give him a chin jerk. He wasn't dead. His EKG had a dying heart pattern. Because where I was standing against the president's head, every time he squeezed his chest, blood squirted out, went down my front, down my breeches leg, into my shoes. There wasn't blood anywhere else, though, except on the president's head. I thought, ventilation's inadequate. He's bubbling. EKG is looking a little better with the oxygen. He's a bigger man than I thought he was. He's sticking off of both ends of the table. How in the world could he function in that brace that he has on? He was wearing a canvas-laced steel back brace. It came up to his rib margin in front, went higher in the back, and he was laced into that brace in addition by 6-inch wide ace bandages, which would go one turn around his torso, then around the thigh, then around his torso and around the other thigh. Some of the assassination theorists would say, well, why didn't he fall forward if he was hit from the back? Well, that shows their lack of knowledge of ballistics first. But second, I'd say he couldn't have fallen forward regardless of what direction he was hit from. Perhaps if he hadn't had that brace on, the third bullet as it was, would not have hit him. He would have fallen out of sight. There were other doctors in the room by this time, too. I'm not trying to make this a sole description as if I were the only one there. I'm trying to give you my view of it. And I'd have to say that everyone who comes into the room would enter into the resuscitative process from a position where he knew he would be needed. As I'm giving you my report that somebody else says he was the only one there. Well, I think that's a tribute to the surgical colleagues we have, that when they work, they have tunnel vision. They look at where they're working, they don't see anything else. They're not distracted by anything else. And I did draw up a list afterwards and put names by everybody who was there. And I'm glad I have, because there have been another 100 or so who claim to have been there. Others in the room were starting intravenously by doing cut down to a vein since they didn't stand up, to put a cannula in, a catheter in to give fluids and blood. One putting a chest tube in a left chest because it listened to the chest, couldn't hear breath sounds as I was squeezing the bag. Another putting a catheter in a bladder, which is one of the things you do to the trauma patient to help assess what all of his injuries are. And so there were IVs being started, intravenous solutions being started in 3 extremities. She would come circling through, and a member of the Secret Service would come in, get her by the arm, and take her out. She looked, she had a 50-yard stare. She didn't see anything, it appeared. I think you could have done this and she wouldn't have blinked. White, drawn in the face, looking very remote, shocked, I would say. And she was carrying her hands like this for the first 2 or 3 times she came through the room. Her left hand over her right hand, and at one time she came and nudged me with her elbow, and as I looked around, handed me what was in her right hand, which was a big chunk of the president's brain. That was a bad moment, I can tell you. Now, I believe people coming into the room were not really aware at first of a head injury. He had bloody, matted hair, and he had a big shock of hair, and it covered the wound in the side of his head. They were contemplating what to do next. I said, Mike, we don't have a chance here. Look at this head injury. We cannot resuscitate him. And then for the first time, we slowed up and people took a look at this head injury. But you pull the hair up a little, and then you can see that there's a piece of bone the size of your palm of your hand that was gone, and some brain tissue hanging from the wound. Oh, Dr. Kemp Clark, the neurosurgeon, did a better study of it, very short study, and said there's no possible way. And went over and asked the priest, when is the proper time to declare one dead that you can give the last rites? Father Huber said, we would like to give the last rites as soon as we can after one is declared dead. With that, having declared him dead, the room really cleared out. I was amazed how soon people got out of the room. I think they didn't want to stay. Now, as you hear accounts that how many people did a thorough examination of the wound, that's not true. They left the room as soon as they could. I think everybody took a look, but not a thorough examination by any means. And I didn't leave the room. I was trying to take out, as I needed to do, take out the EKG leads. There were 4 leads plugged in, take out the IV leads, take out the chest tube, remove the tracheostomy tube. And while I was doing this, Ms. Kennedy came back in the room, and the priest for the last rites. And she approached him from the foot and kissed him on the toe, on the foot, leg, thigh, abdomen, chest, and lips, and then stood at the side. The priest was certainly aware of the solemnity of the occasion, the gravity of the circumstances, and with slow, resonant tones, he had a very appropriate service, last rites, and a prayer.